Political Notebook this week, the extraordinary events of the last week, the killing of Eugene Terre Blanches on his farm. And I've got with me two of the Times reporters who covered the story, Charl du Plessis and Sipho Masondo. And let's start with you, Charl. What was it like going into the bedroom to the murder scene?
It was very eerie. The farmhouse is not exactly what you'd expect of someone from Mr. Blanche's stature.
Yeah.
It's kind of dark and it's very gloomy inside, and it added to it. And
He wasn't living there, hey? It was sort of a temporary place that he'd come and go from.
correct, the family does also have a house in the town, but he spent some nights there. It wasn't a permanent residence, and the room itself is. There was an attempt at a hasty cleanup before, the reporters were let into the house. But you could still tell that there was some blood spatter against the walls, and the blood stain on the bed obviously was massive. It was a very brutal murder, I would have to say.
Okay. And Sipho, you visited and spoke to some people in the local township and got their reaction, people who had worked for him. What was that experience like?
When I went there on Sunday, I arrived in one of the houses there. I found these two guys and I tell them that, look, guys, I'm here. I'm doing a story about the death of Eugene Terre Blanches. And immediately one of the guys, it turns out that one of the guys was in fact a son of a guy that Eugene had apparently killed in the 1990s, in the early 1990s. And he was just relating how his father died and how he himself ended up working for the guy, but he didn't work there because he wanted to work there, but he just didn't have a choice, and Eugene was the only guy that offered him employment, and how he related the story of his experience at the farm. He told me that when Eugene discovered that he was the son of the guy that Eugene had killed, he literally sacked him on the spot. He just told him that, look, pack your bags and go away, don't come back to my farm again. So I still went to the township and spoke to a lot of people, and people were very happy that he died, because apparently in the early 90s, Eugene and the AW guys would actually storm in the township and gallop up and down the township in horses, and everyone at 6 o'clock must be in the house, and if you're not in the house, you could risk being killed.
It's an extraordinary picture that you painted from that side of the, there was a sort of view that he'd come out of prison and had been a reformed man. Did they buy into that?
Not at all, not at all. In fact, they had said, I spoke to one woman who told me that when Eugene came out of prison and then it was claimed, or he claimed that he has reformed, not even a single person believed him in the township. They actually said that, no, he's just saying these things because he wants the people to buy his face. And in fact, as time went on, he was proved to be wrong, because of all the things that he had done after he had claimed to have been reformed.
And then there was a tense standoff outside the courtroom. What was that like? I mean, this community is incredibly divided.
I think it was about 15 minutes, Sipho, that we had this tense standoff, and it started with obviously the singing of the stem, the old national anthem, on the one side, and then the national anthem, and then it just sparked off. But to my mind, it was very tense. Look, but it was only 15 or 20 minutes that that situation persisted, and then the AWB guys went off to their own meeting, and all of the white group, I'd call them, and then after that, it calmed down very much. So, I don't know if I think there was some selective editing on TV in terms of that.
Okay, but isn't it extraordinary that you're 16 years after democracy, this is absolutely sharp divide. In terms of race, in terms of who has resources, money, power, all that kind of thing.
I think that's very true. I think not much has changed, not even since democracy, but even before that. I mean, ever since the town of Ventersdorp was there, I think it's been pretty much the same. Those groups. What was striking to me is that I spoke to this, across this sharp divide. You would speak to people, and you would have to actually bring up the topic of Eugene Terre Blanches' death for them to say anything about it. It was about farm murders. Lack of service delivery, lack of the change in the status quo.
And what do you think is going to happen next, Sipho? I mean, is this town going to settle down, or is there going to be a long siege?
Just taking you back, Ray, to the question you asked Charl now about the tensions there in the court. What was really striking and extraordinary for me is the fact that, after the AW guys had sang this the black guys actually, in fact, sang Nkosi Sikelel. And what really was extraordinary for me is that they included the African stanza as well as the English stanza, And then the AW guys came again and then started singing Dilare, Dilare, that song, and that's when the tension started, and then the people really started charging, towards each other, and then the cops had to come and pull. In fact, they had a nyala. They had to come and erect a barbed wire to separate the two groups, and then it just brought back all those memories to pre-1994 when the country was really polarized and it was divided according to racial lines.
But do you have a sense that this right-wing movement is going to get some life out of this incident?
Not at all. Surprisingly, on that morning, I spoke to Peter Steyn, who's the spokesperson for AWP. He kept on telling us and many other journalists that after the death of Terre Blanche, they have received more than 3,000 applications for membership. But I personally feel that in order for AWP to really be a sustainable party, they really need a guy that's very radical, like Terre Blanche himself. But I don't know if Mr. Steyn, the new guy that has been selected, is that radical. But I certainly do not see the AWP being a sustainable party in South Africa.
Thank you, Sipho, and thank you, Charl.